Let's now take you back to one of our top stories where the US is now on high alert over Iran's warning of hitting back at either its or Israel's assets in West Asia after Israel struck the Iranian embassy in Syria's Damascus earlier this week. What does this mean for the Israel-Hamas conflict and its aftermath is what we're talking about today with our expert guest Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary, the Ministry of External Affairs. Good evening to you, Mr. Bhattacharya. What do you think of this warning? The US and Israel seem to be taking it very seriously this time around, but is Israel really going to step in a manner that it hasn't done so far in this conflict and widen it further?
Well, you see, a deliberate airstrike on a diplomatic premise is truly an extraordinary event. And I think it signals two very important things. The first is it is in clear violation of international laws and conventions. And this is something that just does not happen in normal times. The second big consequence of this is that it threatens that the lack of stability and the conflagration that is currently ongoing between Israel and Palestine now threatens to spill over to a wider ramification in the region, and runs the risk of actually drawing in other parties into this particular confrontation. And that's a very, very serious thing as well. So I think what has happened in Damascus was terrible and should not have happened. And the kind of response that we've seen from the Iranian side, it has had comments from its supreme leader as well as the leader of the Revolutionary Guards saying that there will be retaliation. And at the same time, the Iranians have also set up a channel of communication directly with the Americans through the Swiss who represent the Americans in Tehran, telling them about their intentions. And understandably, the Americans are concerned about this development. You would recall that this is not the first time that there has been an attack on Iranian interests, and the last time when Soleimani was killed, there was a quick reprisal from the Iranian side. So I think this is something that the US and Israel should definitely take seriously.
And Iran has said that the US should step aside and perhaps the principal focus might be Israel itself. But the US, why is the US taking this threat so seriously vis-a-vis its own assets?
So, as you know, and I mentioned that Iran has already sent out a message to the Iranians, to the Americans. The Americans seemingly were not informed in advance about the specific airstrike, which, as I was saying, is in violation of international conventions. And Americans do not wish to be part of this. The American response, which is learned unofficially, was that they have told the Iranians to stay away from US assets. And if that is what the response was, it also indicates that they expect that the Iranians will respond, will retaliate, and they expect that it would be proportionate and only on Israeli targets. And what those Israeli targets would be is anybody's guess. The initial intelligence reports from the US side seems to suggest that there would be drone attacks and perhaps even cruise missiles that could be targeted towards Israeli targets. But what it is going to be and when it is going to be, I think is going to be Iran's choosing now at this stage.
Well, Israel has its own defenses. It's called up people who are on leave as well to man those air defenses and other paraphernalia that it has to defend itself. But at the same time, there's tremendous pressure on Israel to do just the opposite of what it has done in Damascus. The pressure is from the US to temper things down in the wake of what's happened with the aid workers and the fact that there's another round of talks that's supposed to get underway in Cairo from Sunday.
So what the Israelis done is also quite expected. They have called in their reservists. They have stopped all the leave that the IDF would have wanted to take, and they've stepped up their defenses. They've also cut off the GPS location finding systems so that the targeting, if it were to be on Israeli targets on Israeli soil, would be affected. There are reports that people are getting proxy location targets, and all this is directed towards averting or minimizing the loss. But what it has happened is that it has put to risk Israeli citizens whose security has been undermined because of this particular attack by the Israeli side in Damascus. What it has also done is put questions on the process of negotiations that was underway, and there can be new questions that will come up. So this is definitely a very negative setback for any potential peace process of ceasefire or even discussions on the hostages. One would have wished that there would have been a more sensible approach to this, but I think things have been otherwise.
And what about the Hamas itself? Because the fact that we've not had that deal which was supposed to happen before Ramadan, even now when I think we're just about pretty close to Eid now, that a part of that blame, a large part of that blame is also resting on the shoulders of the Hamas, because it's just not coming midway. There's no meeting ground, it seems. Everyone begins with the extreme position when they sit down to talk.
Well, there is definitely a very serious lack and a crisis of leadership in that region. Hamas is, of course, squarely responsible for the lack of leadership on its part, because it has, in a sense, set off in motion the current situation. But the same thing should also be said of the Israeli leadership at this point of time. And there is a large degree of resentment and opposition within Israel about some of the actions and decisions that the leadership has taken. Because if the objective was to increase the security of Israel and of Israeli people, there are deep questions that are now being asked. And even the Americans who went along with the Algerian proposal at the Security Council calling for reforms, we have seen that calling for a ceasefire, we are seeing that has not yet happened. So I think it is on both sides, on both the Israeli leadership side as well as the Hamas leadership, where they have not been cooperative enough in bringing about the ceasefire that should have happened a long time ago. The loss of civilian lives has been unimaginable. There have been loss of lives of aid workers most recently, and the Israeli IDF has actually had to come out and apologize for that particular operation. So things are running a little out of control, and I think all sides have to take responsibility for this.
Yes, on a day when another hostage was found to be dead. His body was recovered as well by the Israeli forces, apparently killed in January itself. So anger, of course, building up among people on both sides, and yet there's no respite for them, either the Israelis or the Gazans who are caught up, the Palestinians who are caught up in Gaza in this conflict. Thanks for joining us for the moment to talk about it, Prasar Bharati.